ليش انت هون؟
I need toilet paper, lemons. What we have here?
Security chief, move now!
أحلى بلد في فلسطين.
ماما
What do you want? Hey! We have a system here.
My house is just there. طيب بابا طيب ولا إشي مش مشكلة بنحل يلا نمشي.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest edition of the KinderUSA Speaker Series. Today's episode is a little bit different. During the holy month of Ramadan, we did something where we focused on the heroes doing the work on the ground in the situations with the most humanitarian need. Today, our guest is someone very, very special who is using her voice to bring international attention to what is going on in Palestine in a very different way. She's using her art. I'm so excited to say that we have with us director Farah Nabulsi. Farah has directed a few short films, but most recently her film, The Present, garnered a lot of attention and was nominated for an Oscar as well as a BAFTA. And I'm so excited to say that we have with us Farah Nabulsi. Farah. Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. First of all, congratulations a million times over. The film is beautiful and amazing, and I'm so glad that it's not just us Palestinians who have noticed what an amazing film this is. So just to give people a little bit of a background, you are Palestinian British. Your parents are Palestinian, but they were fortunate enough to make a home in Britain in the 1970s, unlike millions who continued to remain stateless in refugee camps. So you grew up and were educated in London, and you began your career as an institutional equity stockbroker, right? And then at some point, just completely did an about face in 2015 and decided to go into the film industry. And you launched a production company and so on. So, but I'll let you tell us a little bit more about that. So tell me a little bit more about your journey and how this huge transition came about.
Yeah. Okay. So the very short version is quite simply that I went home. So it's like you describe. I was born, raised, educated in London, but my blood, my heritage is Palestinian on both my parents' side. And I had been many times as a young child to Palestine. And then for around 25 years, nothing. And then I go back for the first time as an adult about 7-8 years ago. And I was completely overwhelmed by everything I saw, witnessed, and understood on the ground. Even though I thought I'd understood what was going on, there's no comparison to seeing it with your own two eyes. And long story short, I ended up writing therapeutically about what I had seen and felt, and then decided to adapt those writings to my first 3 short films. I ended up producing them, and then I took the leap to direct my first short film, which is The Present. So for me, you could say that the metamorphosis, the transition, really was on the back of that initial trip and the trips that followed. And then around 2 years of me trying to figure out how I could express myself creatively, but how I could also give voice to these human stories of a deeply misrepresented or underrepresented or silenced people. And that's how it came about.
So let's talk a little bit about your writings and the stories that then inspired and then became these 3 short films. And just to kind of let everybody know, we're talking about Oceans of Injustice, Nightmare of Gaza, and Today They Took My Son. So tell me a little bit about how those stories developed and how it went from, writing therapeutically, like you were saying, into these concepts for short films.
Well, first of all, I would say that those first 3 shorts, because they were adaptations of these writings that had no intention of making any films with, they certainly are very different to the present. They are more tone poem, more portrait. They all have voiceover, experimental. Each one is very different, but that's that's what they have in some ways in common as well. And really, it came down to me. I mean, the really honest story is I found my writings. I was going through papers and I found my writings and I got emotional, very emotional all over again. And that was my light bulb moment in some ways, where I had been racking my brain and feeling very depressed and down about the reality there. And what can I do? What can I do? And I had kind of come to this conclusion. And when I found these papers, it confirmed it for me, is that the reason that this has been allowed to go on for so long and on such a scale, even though Palestinians have truth and right and international law on their side, is because most people do not know enough about the Palestinian struggle, do not feel enough. They are not empathetic enough. And that's very different to sympathy or pity, empathy. And it was that realization, when I'm reading these papers and I'm someone who even knows, and I'm getting emotional all over again in the memory of what it was I had written down. And I realized that in many ways is what's missing in the equation, if you like. You can have all of the NGOs, all of the charity organizations, all of these solidarity campaigns. You can have all your facts, all your figures, all your truths and your proofs and your maps and all of it. But unless you speak to people's hearts, you will not access their minds. And that has been sort of proven again and again with my own work and how I see other struggles being communicated and people actually taking action. So it was, okay, I've got these writings that I've come across, and I played a little bit the idea of audio pieces. Okay. And podcasts and things like this, and audio is quite interesting, exciting. And so I just tested that out, and I went and recorded these pieces in a studio. I didn't tell anyone. I just thought, okay, let me see how this works. And then I concluded that, okay, maybe I'm onto something, but I've always loved film. And I've always felt that film is the ultimate communicator, if you like. I think it's the most powerful means of meaningful human communication the world has ever known, actually. And it's so immersive. So I said, you know what? I'm going to make films out of this. And I didn't have any background in film. I didn't go to film school. I didn't work in the industry. But I knew that I had the desire to tell these stories. I knew I was onto something. And it was about just adapting those writings and saying, okay, now that you're going to have the visual side, I hired the right directors that I thought were right for the job. I expressed them, of course, part of my vision and desires and whatever it was that I wanted to get out of these pieces. I engaged with writers when I needed to kind of help with the adaptation. So, for example, today they took my son, Hind Jafani, who also co-wrote the script of The Present with me. I engaged her to help adapt the writings. For Today They Took My Son, for example. And you work with a team of people, and you kind of pull it together as a producer. And those 3 pieces were eventually born. Then they were all happening kind of in tandem, those 3. It was Nightmare of Gaza came a little bit later as a film, because it was so difficult to adapt it from the audio piece, because it's such a visceral, painful piece. That took a little bit of delay, but the 3 films were happening in tandem, in the sense that I had these 3 pieces together and worked on them. The Present, I'm in the film industry. That's it. I've got the bug. I'm in it. And all along the journey, people ask me, why aren't you directing? And I think I suffered a little bit maybe of imposter syndrome of, don't you have to have gone to film school? Come on, I don't know the technicals. And a few wonderful people sort of said, actually, no, you don't. As long as you have the vision and and the leadership skills and, you know, the persistence and the passion and all of it. And I said, wait, I do have all of those things. I have a very visual, verbal, vivid imagination as well. And the present as a story was already percolating, you know, based on my own personal experiences during these trips to Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this story and I thought, okay. So I wrote the first kind of draft of the script and then began to co-write the script with Hind. And of course, you know, adding and growing and like expanding and then contracting and expanding, contracting and all of it. And during that whole process, I could see the entire world of this film in my mind's eye. Mm-hmm. And then I said, okay, if I'm ever going to direct, then this is going to be it. This is going to be my directorial debut. Mm-hmm. And that's it. That's how we got here.
Well, I think one thing you said that I just want to touch on a little bit, which is, as you said, I mean, and I'm like you know, as a producer myself, it's, you know, the power of film is always, I'm a firm believer in it and the difference it makes. And I think the key thing is humanizing people. You know what I mean? We watch the news and it's numbers and facts and figures, as you mentioned, numbers, X number of people died, X number of people are food insecure. And people get that, but it's not the same as seeing human stories. And I think that is the tremendous difference in what you've managed to do so successfully. And then watching the present, I mean, you know, just moving on to that, because it was such a powerful film. It's such a simple story. You know, it blows your mind about how it's just a simple story, one day, one simple story, and how it takes place. But you get so emotionally invested in these people. So that's why, you know, I want to talk a little bit more about the present, and we were getting there. You started to. So you were saying that the idea came to you from one of your trips. Was it a personal experience, or did you see something specific, or it was just kind of an accumulation of a variety of different experiences?
Yeah, no, it wasn't one of my trips. I mean, it was, you know, every trip you go to Palestine, you go through checkpoints. So, I mean, for me, it was an accumulation. It was inspired by, yes, my own personal experiences at these checkpoints and witnessing Palestinians at these checkpoints and the way they've been treated. I mean, I could point to, for example, the story of when I was standing watching a young female Israeli soldier shouting at this elderly couple. And it was just appalling. And I have all sorts of scenarios, you know, that I remember. But the seed for this particular story was born of a conversation that I was having with a friend of mine. And I say a friend, someone I had gotten to become friends with over these trips and these years. And we were standing on one side of a checkpoint that he has to go through sometimes numerous times a day because it's only around 100 meters from his own home. Mm-hmm. So while we were looking at this, I said to him, okay, I need to understand something. If you needed to bring a new couch home, what do you do? Because this particular checkpoint is very similar to the one in the film, which has a turnstile and a metal detector. And, you know, he just looked at me and sort of said, it doesn't fit, it doesn't go. And I just remember thinking, how absurd, like how crazy is this? And so that led to, you know, further conversation. It got more convoluted. And that's where the sort of idea of the story came. And it really is, like you said, it's a simple, simple story, but it speaks volumes about a very absurd, dystopian, unacceptable, cruel, perverse reality on the ground. And from there, of course, you add your, you know, storytelling, if you like, so, I mean, for example, and not many people know this, but the original basic story, and all stories start with a very basic premise. So for me, it was man goes, gets something, comes back, you know, okay? And then once we were kind of through, I think it was the second or third draft, I was like, wait a second, no. I've been at these checkpoints and it's not about just adults. There are children that go through these checkpoints all the time, and there are parents who have to take their children through these checkpoints. And it's not just that the children watch their parents being humiliated and their, you know, superhero fathers impotent in the face of this military power. but actually they're humiliated as well. You know, we forget that as well. Anyway, so I said to Hind, you know, I sent her a message. Actually, I said, look, sorry.
I was just saying, and the psychological effect it has on them that we don't think about, you know.
Oh, yeah, totally. On them and the parents. And you know, even on those perpetrating it, actually, you know,
Yes.
and so I just sent her a WhatsApp, and I actually said, we need to add his daughter, you know. So it's just interesting, and people are like, oh my God, but that's how storytelling develops, you know. We have, you know, you add, you take, you know, and you eventually, you hopefully end up with a story that resonates, and you know, so yeah, this was that. Even the ending was never decided. Even with the first draft, the second draft, it was like, okay, this is how it, and that's more reality. But then, you know, we won't go into the ending in this call. But
Yeah, I'm not saying a word.
you know, again, and that's the beauty of storytelling. You know, you have your premise, and then you build a powerful, evocative story. And again, it's a fiction film, but it's based on a reality. And
well, based on, you know, a cumulative effect of many stories, as you said, ones with different children, ones with different parents, and ones with elder people, and all of that. One thing I also loved about the film, and I don't know whether this was just tremendous luck or, you know, a ton of effort on your part, but the casting. I mean, the father and the daughter. Wow, you know what I mean? It's just like, I was always thinking, like, where in the world did you manage to find? I mean, I know I IMDb'd him, and I know that, you know, he's a working actor, but especially the young girl, she's magnificent.
Well, look, both of them. I mean, of course, one of the roles of a director is to cast her film. I mean, it's you know, you. So when it came to him, yeah, Saleh Bakri is a seasoned actor, but he was the actor I wanted. So
Yeah.
you know, it was. You know, and I'm so happy that's who I wanted, and I'm so happy that's who I got, you know. Whereas Miriam, really, I see as the world conspiring, and me recognizing with all my heart and my instinct that even though she was not a trained actress in any shape, form, or fashion, she was the one, you know. And so actually the quick version of the story is that I have a friend. I went to her house. I know nothing about her niece who lives in Palestine. I didn't even know she had a sister who lived in Palestine, you know. And I said to her, look, I've just cast Saleh Bakri in the film that I'm planning on making, which is the first time I'm even telling her about the film, you know. And I said, but I really find myself sort of an 8-year-old girl. Ideally, she lives in Palestine. She's got to speak Arabic. I'd really like her to be a great actress. I'd like her to look like her father. I mean, my order was pretty long.
For uniform, exactly.
Right. And I was like, you know, and you know, and since Salah has blue eyes, it'd be even better if, you know, and she goes, what about my niece? And I said to her, what about your niece? She said, okay. She shows me a picture of this girl who looks more like Saleh Bakri than she does her own father.
Right.
Which I discovered. And crazy enough is that she said, look, I don't know if she can act, but I do know that she's been on many sets because her father's a production designer, a film production designer. And she tells me his name, Nail Kanj. And then I'm like, Nail Kanj, that sounds so familiar. So I look at my phone, and already this is the man that we have basically hired to be the production manager on our film. So
wow, what a coincidence.
Yeah. Now, the coincidence of Palestinian film industry and society in Palestine, okay, it's quite a tight circle, fine. But the fact that it's his daughter, and I'm not even in Palestine, and that's who a friend is recommending was insane. Who looks like Saleh Bakri.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but she's comfortable on sets, you know. When you're in Palestine, why don't you visit her? And I said to her, does she speak Arabic? She's like a grandma. Like, you know, she's like a... Fine. So I meet her and I fall absolutely in love with her. I mean, she was just something else. Really emotionally intelligent, really confident, especially, you know, when it came to adult strangers. Her being on set did not intimidate her. But when I met her, it was just this beautiful personality, emotional intelligence. We got on so well. And yeah, and then I did go and audition a couple of other child actors, knowing that Miriam is who I wanted, but I just felt it was too good to be true. Like, is this... So really, when I say divine grace, you know, the world conspiring, I truly mean it. That, you know, yes, okay, I can recognize this is the right girl, but ultimately she was handed to me in a way that it blows my mind, really.
That is amazing. And it's things like that that always kind of, I don't know, give me goosebumps thinking, wow, some things were really just meant to be, forces from above just saying, okay, yes, you're going to make this one. And so
I have a theory which is sort of, people can kind of go, okay. And ultimately, this is the greatness of God, if you like, whatever God is to anyone. Mm-hmm. I believe that when you do something with good intention and you are basically saying, I offer this up to the universe, and it is something good for the universe, if you like, or good for humanity, or good for people who need to be heard, or whatever it is, mm-hmm. the universe kind of puts its ear and goes, oh, this is for me, okay, well, I'm going to give you, I'm going to help you do this. I'm going to, it really felt like that, not just with Miriam, with many things. So, mm-hmm. yeah.
So the film, once it came together, and you saw, obviously you were probably very bought into it and, knew that something beautiful was brewing, but did you expect the kind of international attention and buzz that it has managed to create, and appreciation and so on?
Short answer, no. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that we're going to win a BAFTA. Yes, that definitely wasn't in my forecast. Look, I definitely wanted to make a film that would be in some ways groundbreaking. I definitely wanted to make a film that would be seen far and wide. How I was going to get it seen far and wide wasn't 100% sure. And of course, in many ways you count on the idea that we're in this digital technological revolution. And ultimately, if I have to use social media, whatever it is one has to do, we'll go through the motions of it. But ultimately, I'd like to get as many people to watch my art and to obviously watch this film for what it is, regardless. Mm-hmm. I think I had a little bit of a clue that it was going to resonate well. Well, first of all, the one of the sound guys, Ibrahim, when we were filming, he turned to me at one point. He goes, "Your film is going to win many awards." I remember looking at him and be like, "Okay, mate." I don't know where you got that from. I'm drowning here, like
your mouth to God's ears, Yeah, exactly.
So he's been on many film sets, of course, much far more than I've ever been on. I'd only been on my 3 of the shorts of the Yeah. So it was really, that wasn't a moment of eye opening. It was more like, he's crazy. But he obviously saw something I didn't in that moment because I was, exhausted.
You can't always see the forest through the trees when you're in the middle of doing it,
Yes, exactly. But he could see something, So that was one thing that should have been like maybe an omen, a positive omen, if you like, or But what really gave me just a moment of, oh, okay, this is hopefully going to resonate. Again, not BAFTAs and Oscars here, but was our world premiere at Clermont-Ferrand, which is considered the sort of creme de la creme, like the top sort of festival in the world for short films. And there was something like 9,000 films submitted for that festival, and they took 140. And it's an Oscar qualifying festival and all of that. So when we were officially selected, I was like, yes, okay, that means we've made a good, decent film. It must be, great. But then I attended the festival, which was 8 days long, and it was the only festival I attended for this film because unfortunately the pandemic then hit. And I attended every single screening of the film. And it was the first time I'd seen it on the big screens. Massive screens. And I could hear the audience reactions. And I mean by applause, by even people saying things, even the ushers when I would arrive and they go, "Oh, you're the director. Oh, I've heard about your film." And it was like, oh, wow, okay, what's happening here? Mm-hmm. And then we won the audience award. And that was a moment of, okay, this has resonated. Now, did I predict then where it would go from there and sort of end up with over 30 jury and audience awards and a BAFTA and an Oscar nomination? No. But that's when I kind of realized that the film is something that is resonating. That's the word I always use because I don't want to, I couldn't say it's a film that people enjoy. Like, no, it resonates. And yeah, it's just been one beautiful step after the other. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was never really ever about accolades and awards. Not to say that that's not wonderful. I mean, to have your work appreciated, recognized, awarded, and of course, not just for me, for the whole team. This is a beautiful thing, but never for that. It was always to be seen. Naturally, all of that, though, all those accolades contribute to it being seen more and more and more. So I'm thrilled, I'm grateful for them, but ultimately something like the Netflix, exposure where it's on Netflix worldwide, for example, that super excites me because now we're talking about
impact.
a film out there to audiences worldwide.
One thing I want to ask you about, I mean, there's two things I want to ask you, one super positive and one a little bit negative. I want to ask you, what has been the most meaningful reaction that you have had? What has touched your heart the most to the film? Give me a meaningful reaction to the film that has touched you the most. It could be just one word from someone, like Ibrahim on set. That's the positive one I want to ask you, and then I'll ask you about the negative one.
Honestly, the outpour of beautiful messages I have received from around the world and from within Palestine, from Palestinians and non-Palestinians, Arabs and non-Arabs, internationals and Jewish, Christian and Muslim, or no religion. I mean, the reactions and emails and messages and direct messages on social and all that have been phenomenal. But the one, I say not the one, but the ones that really touch me deeply are the ones that I get from Palestinians in Palestine who have said things like, "Thank you, I feel like I've been seen."
Yeah.
And that just, even saying it, it brings tears to my eyes. Or people who sort of say, "I am Yusuf. Thank you for, this is what I went through even yesterday. Thank you." And you're like, oh my God, like that touches me, beyond anything. And I just had the loveliest message that I posted on social media just today. Someone sent me quite a more detailed message. It was just a comment and I hardly see because I'm not on as much as people think. So I don't get to see a lot of what's there. And I happened to see this message in the comments of a post. And they had said that they thought they'd understood what was going on with Palestine, but then they watched my shorts, including the present, and then they went to the source and they've been learning and learning and learning, and they now completely understand and stand with, their brothers and sisters in Palestine who are suffering this ocean of injustice. She's quoting, I think it was a female, quoting my film back to me saying, this ocean of injustice, and that their niece is going to be born and they're going to name her Farah. And I was like, wow. And it was just like, wow, that was profound, in terms of just someone actually going through the process of watching, then deciding to learn more and more, and then finally understanding and coming into solidarity with the struggle. Is just beautiful transition. Yeah. So now let's go to the negative. We can just ruin this.
I mean, I know what the question is, which is there are forces out there and, large segments of people who don't want Palestinian stories, Palestinians humanized, and who don't want stories to get out there and who want to keep a particular international perception. And so have you, unfortunately, I'm sure you have you faced any kind of negative backlash or people who just, want to keep pushing down these stories?
Honestly, obviously on sort of social media, I receive messages that can be very hateful, but there's absolutely nothing worth me even mentioning. Like nothing that, was so profound or, it just, honestly, it sort of just glides off me because they're so unfounded. There's no real meat to what it is they're saying. You can't deny what's in the film. And so that's the truth. It's a harsh truth, maybe for some, but it is what it is. So the answer is no. I haven't had any major backlash. But otherwise, look, if the film has won all these awards, it is being appreciated, and not just by juries, but by audiences as well. If it was qualified for the Oscars and then ended up shortlisted and then nominated, and the same when it comes to the BAFTAs, that tells me actually there's far more people who are interested to understand, to engage, and appreciate the art, of course, of the film, and appreciate the subject matter, and appreciate the deeper meaning of it. And so that just gives me wonderful faith and hope, actually. I think in many ways you'd have to have a heart of stone, regardless of whatever beliefs you have, to go, oh, that's okay. It's not okay.
Yeah. No.
It's not okay. And, so ultimately, unless you're going to be in complete denial, which occasionally those messages I receive are, where they're like, there are no checkpoints in the West Bank. And you're like, okay, it's not even notable to tell you, because that's complete denial. There's, either denial or they've been taught that there are no checkpoints, or one or the other, but
Right.
they truly believe, okay, and in which case you're like, okay,
I have nothing to say to you. If the premise itself is not there, that this exists, then there is no conversation, as you mentioned. Yeah. So let's talk about what's next. So now that you've made the film, that's done all this amazing stuff, and I know that there is a feature in development, but I want to hear from you what's happening with that, and any other interesting things you're embarking on in the next period.
Well, I can't tell you too much about it, to be honest, except to say, yeah, so it's just a character-driven drama thriller, and it's universal themes: love, loss, parenthood, set in the same geopolitical landscape. And yeah, I'm super, super excited about it. But like you said, it's opened a few doors, the present, in many ways. So we're in development, deep development of it. And that's why I can't say too much about it now. But I'm super excited because it's something I've written, and it's, like I said, feature length. So hopefully keep your eyes posted. I hope it won't take too long, but hopefully going to be powerful storytelling. And yeah, that's it. That's all I can say about that for now.
And Farah, given how busy I know you have been, I don't need to hear from you even to know that. I know, with the success of the film and everything it's done, I'm sure that it's nonstop. And please do take a little time for yourself. And we appreciate so much you taking the time to talk with us at KinderUSA. And although we focus a lot on kind of the neediest children and their families in Gaza and the West Bank and in the refugee camps, it's people who do the work that you do that also make a huge difference, drawing attention to what's going on. And so I just want to thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. And thank you for everything you've been doing and for getting the stories out there. And as a fellow storyteller and producer, it's just, I commend you on everything you're doing and how hard you're working and the difference that it's made. And please keep it up. And I'm personally excited about the feature film more than anything in the world, and looking forward to seeing it. And good luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was a beautiful thank you from you, and thank you for the work you guys do. Seriously, it blows my mind. So, yeah, pleasure being with you.
Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation with Farah as much as I did. And as she talked about, artistic advocacy is so, so important, and it takes people like her to be able to tell these stories and get them out to the world and to Hollywood. But at the same time, we at Kinder are also working with those really, really forgotten children and their families on the ground. So please, as always, consider contributing. Go to KinderUSA.org. Every penny counts. Every dollar counts, makes a difference in the children's lives, and especially with everything going on right now. I feel like every time we talk, we say, especially with everything going on right now, but it never seems to get easier. It only seems to get harder. So please consider contributing and helping us with the programs that we're doing to help the neediest children and their families. And we'll see you again soon with another edition of the Kinder Speaker Series.